Hi, this is James, and in this video I'm continuing my conversation on Kipper cards by category, and this time we're going to be talking the cause and effect cards, so stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this video. If this is your first time here, I'd like to say welcome, and if you're a returning viewer and visitor, I'd like to say welcome back. As I said in the opener, this is an ongoing conversation I've been having around the Kipper cards, specifically by category. This series is actually honoring the request of a viewer named Eloy. Hello, Eloy. Eloy was kind enough to ask me if I would be willing to do a series of videos talking about the groupings of Kipper cards within the entire Kipper card system. So if you're just landing here, if this is the first video that you are finding in the series, this is part 4 of a 5-part series. In part 1, I talked about the people cards. In part 2, I talked about the connector cards. And in part 3, I talked about the movement cards. You will find all the links to those previous videos in the description box below. So now we are talking about part 4, or the 4th category, I should say, out of the 5, and that is the cause and effect cards. And so I have the cards on the table, so before we get into the specific cards, because there's, I want to say 5 or 6 that make up this category, let's talk about the deck I'm going to be using. So I'm going to be using my personal Kipper card deck. This is one I made for myself. It is called the Kipper of Himm. If you'd like to know more about this particular deck and how it came into being, you can check out video 1 and to get the full scoop on that. But this is the deck I'm using, and the reason why I'm specifying my deck is because before Eloy sent me the request, I had the inspiration that I was going to color code the cards by category, and each category has a different color. So the people cards had a purple border, the connector cards had a pink border, the movement cards had a green border, and the cause and effect cards are going to have a yellow border. And the reason being is because I was going with the idea, as I mentioned in the previous video, with the movement cards being green, that I likened it to the idea of a traffic light for green being go. With that in mind, I went with yellow for like a caution, right? Because all the cards in this deck, or in this category within the deck, I should say, can be a little challenging. So, without further ado, let's get to the cards. So the first one is False Person. This is card 8 in the Kipper deck system, and a lot of people go with the idea that this is a person card because it is named False Person, and it could very well have been in the first video with all the other people cards. However, it's really a cause and effect card, and its chief meaning is dishonesty. It usually for me represents dishonesty, insincerity, concealing something being concealed. It could usually represent something being off within a situation, something being bad, or something being wrong. So that is the chief meaning of false person. The secondary meaning is that it can be a person. Usually it's linked to, like if it's close to a person, like either main person 1 or 2, or a good lady or a good gentleman, any of the people cards, it usually will suggest that the person that the card is close to is insincere or being dishonest, what have you, all the descriptors of the card, right? But now, why is it considered a cause and effect card? All the cause and effect cards have directional cues. Usually on one side of the card will be the cause. Meaning, like, if this is dishonesty, then one side will show you the cause of the dishonesty. And then the other side will show you the effect of the dishonesty. So now, the directional cue lies in the image with the mask, right? So the mask is actually the thing that is used to conceal, right? If you go with the image, it's concealing half the woman's face in the card, right? So the card on this side is showing what's being concealed, right? And then the card on the side with the mask facing out is showing you what the effect is of whatever's being concealed, right? So that is the tip with dishonesty or false person, right? In some decks, it's called dishonesty. But in my particular deck, for me, the directional cue has to do with the mask. So again, in your deck, it is whatever is being hidden or concealed is the cause, right? And then whatever is in front of the mask or whatever the object is that is used to be the concealing agent or factor is what the effect will be. So remember, cause, effect. So that is for false person. Next card is sad news. See where I'm going with this, right? We had dishonesty. Now we have sad news. Sad news, its chief meaning is representative of getting some kind of news or message that is upsetting, disappointing, causes an emotional response or reaction. You can clearly tell by the woman in the card, right? But it can usually just represent sadness. If it's not about a news or message in particular, then it usually just represents sadness and disappointment. Okay, but now, going with this card, the cause of the upset is behind the woman here in this particular case, and then what's in front of her is what the effect will be of the upset, the sadness, and the disappointment, right? So you want to be paying attention to the cards. If cards are on either side, the card that's on this side would be what's causing the upset, what's causing the disappointment, and then the card on this side would be what the effect will be from the cause, right? So we have cause and effect. So that is for sad news. Now remember, sad news is really, the chief meaning is about upset, sadness, and disappointment. Okay, next up we have card 19. This is Fatality. So this is an interesting card here. You would think it would be, because it usually represents an ending and a completion, it would be in the category of cards I'm going to be talking about in the next and final video in this series, and that would be the stop cards. You would think that it is a stop card, but it is not. It is a cause and effect card. Now this is an interesting one to read, because what the cause is would be what is at the front or the head, in my particular case, of the casket or the coffin in the card. This would be the cause on this side, and then the effect would be on the opposite side. So for you in your deck, whatever deck you're using, you might want to go with the idea that the head of the casket is the cause, because yours might be facing a different way in your deck. This would be the cause, and then at the foot is the effect. So that would be for Fatality. In other decks, I know it can be called bereavement or coffin. I'm thinking about the Fin de Siècle Kipper, and I think it's called coffin in that one. Right, but in my mystical Kipper, I mentioned this in the last video, that was the very first Kipper deck I got, and in that deck it's called bereavement. But that is Fatality. Next up is Theft. And so this card usually represents loss. It represents something being taken from you. For me, I have also discovered that it can represent like the takeaway from a situation or experience, right? So it can represent actual loss, something being taken from you, actual theft, but for me it can also represent the takeaway from an experience. So now in my depiction, I have the thief, and then he's leaving the scene of the crime, right? So the scene of the crime, the place where the theft has taken place, is actually the cause. And then where he's going from there is the effect. Right? So we have the cause of the loss, or whatever's been taken or stolen, and then the effect would be on this side. So again, if cards are on opposite side, you want to look to the card on this side for the cause, this card on this side for the effect. But the chief meaning of theft represents something being taken, something being stolen, or some kind of loss. So that is card 24. Next up we have card 28, which is expectations. Now the chief meaning of this card for me can represent expectations, anticipations. You can clearly see in the image like she's waiting on something, right? So just like a long road in the previous video, this is another patience card, but it has a shorter window of time. This card, I believe, is called 3 months patience, yes? Whereas the other one was 1 to 2 years patience, right? So there's, again, waiting for something, anticipating something. You can clearly see in the image, she's looking out the window like she's looking for something, waiting for something to come her way, right? But it's also about needs, desires, and wants. Okay, so now the cause and effect cards. So now behind her would be the cause of the expectation, the cause of the need, what the need is about, what the desire is about, what the anticipation is about. So you would look to the card here for that. And then the effect of that would be the card in front of her. Right? So now in your deck, the character might be facing a different way, but you want to keep that in mind. Whatever's behind the character in expectation is the cause. Whatever is in front of the character is the effect. But the chief meaning of this card is about, again, anticipation, expectation, needs, wants, and desires. And then we have the last card for this video, card 33, which is Gloomy Thoughts. So now this card is about confusion, doubt, uncertainty, pessimism, a negative outlook, a negative state of mind, yeah. And you can clearly see, I went with an image of, you can clearly see that the man is kind of like, if not depressed, right? If he doesn't look depressed to you, then it looks to me like he's kind of like spaced out, like he's zoned out, right? And so behind him would be the cause of the pessimism or the negative state of mind, right? Behind him would be the cause. So you want to look to see whatever card is behind him. And then in front would be the effect of the negativity, the pessimism, the confusion, the doubt, the uncertainty, right? How is that going to play out? How is that going to, what effects will that have going forward? So again, this card represents negativity in the mind, confusion, doubt, uncertainty, and a pessimistic outlook. And there you have it. Those are the cause and effect cards in the deck. And as I said, this is part 4. Next video is the wrap up to the series, and actually the category that has the most number of cards. We are going to be talking about the stop cards. So this is James Mitchell signing off. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Eloy, as I always say, I hope you found this video helpful. I know you've been dropping me comments and letting me know that the previous installments have been helpful, so I'm hoping that continues to be the case with this one. And if you're not Eloy and you tuned in, I hope you got some value, and I hope the information that I shared with you is helpful in your Kipper cartomancy practice. And as I said, I'm signing off. Next video is the wrap-up, and so I look forward to seeing you in that space. And until then, be well and take care.